Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Oh, not unless you've been living in a closet. The war is back on. I told y'all this peace plan and all that ceasefire talk wasn't going nowhere. I told you this war was never going to be over, and it's not. And I am not surprised. Now, Donald Trump is all in the media talking about the ceasefire is dead. Okay, so the stock market dropped. It completely crashed. And there's already rumblings of higher gas prices again. Yes, higher gas prices is coming because the war is in full effect. So last night, the US struck Iran, and today Iran retaliated and fired on some more U.S. bases over there in the Middle East. I believe it was in Kuwait. So they fired back today. So they're going back and forth. It's a very active war, just like it was before. And y'all, this thing is never going to end. We're going to be at the end of the year, and they're still going to be talking the same crap, and it's never going to go anywhere. We are in those times. Things are really falling apart for the U.S., and it's only getting worse, y'all. It's only going to get worse. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. I feel sorry for these young people that are in the military. I do. I mean, my heart goes out to them. I don't care what Donald Trump and his minions say. You know, nobody in their families are going to be on the front line. None of them. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
It's a significant tit-for-tat moment, this. Now, that you can trace this back to, well, the memorandum of understanding, that rather fragile peace deal between Iran and the US. Then over recent days, the Iranians have attacked what we believe are 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, saying that each of them was using a route going near Omani waters that it did not approve. Now, they attacked them with what are called projectiles. I think in effect that is drones. None of these ships sank, but all of them were damaged. And whenever that has happened before, the United States has responded. It's an important time in Iran because it's the funeral of the Ayatollah, who was killed on the first day of that joint American-Israeli attack right at the end of February. The Americans had said that they wouldn't attack Iran during this period, but that has gone out of the window because we then had around 80 attacks by US forces. Now, these were on air defense systems in Iran, but also on what they described as anti-ship missiles, and also on small boats used by the Iranians to launch these attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, 80 is a high number for this sort of reprisal attacks, and the Americans were clear that this was a punishment attack. This was not supposed to be a sort of one for one. It would have been extraordinary if Iran hadn't responded, and of course they have. They say that they have launched 85 attacks using missiles and drones against sites in Bahrain and Kuwait, and identifying some of these as being American installation, American military bases.
The strikes are still ongoing as far as we know. A U.S. official told me that these are going to be much more extensive than some of the more recent retaliatory strikes we've seen by the U.S. military that have been in response to Iran firing missiles or drones at commercial shipping in and around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we know so far the U.S. military has already struck a number of different sites. They're going after things like surface-to-air missiles, coastal surveillance sites, anti-ship cruise missile sites, drone launching facilities, and other port facilities. But so far as we know, the majority of the strikes have really been concentrated around the coastal area of southern Iran, so down in and around the Strait of Hormuz. The big question right now is how much longer will these last, and will Iran respond as we have seen in the past?
Iran has just claimed it targeted 85 U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait in retaliation for American strikes on Iran during the Supreme Leader's funeral. Iranian military spokesman announced that a massive barrage of ballistic missiles and drones was launched against U.S. bases and facilities in the two Gulf nations. The attack, they said, was a direct response to U.S. airstrikes that hit Iranian targets during the national mourning period for the Supreme Leader, despite a prior commitment from President Donald Trump to pause military actions during the 7-day mourning period for slain Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Tehran described the action as necessary self-defense and warned of further strikes if the U.S. continues its aggression. The Trump administration has condemned the attack as unacceptable and placed all U.S. forces in the Middle East on maximum alert. U.S. Central Command stated the strikes targeted over 80 sites, primarily in response to Iranian attacks on commercial vessels, including Qatari and Saudi flagged tankers in the Strait of Hormuz the previous day. The waterway, a critical choke point for about 20% of global oil shipments, has seen heightened tensions. Oil prices have skyrocketed over 25% in early trading as fears grow of a wider regional conflict and possible closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The situation is extremely volatile, with the risk of rapid escalation increasing by the hour.
بندر عباس یا ابوالفضل دوباره جنگ شروع وای وای وای
Iran has just launched missiles at U.S. bases. 6 missiles reportedly fired at a base in Qatar. That's the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, and more aimed at a base in Iraq. Explosions were heard over Doha, air raid sirens, interceptors scrambling. The United States Embassy literally told Americans to shelter in place. Airspace is absolutely closed. This isn't a drill. This is a credible escalation. Iran is officially retaliating for Trump's massive airstrike on their nuclear facilities. And while some of those missiles were shot down, this sends one very clear message. We are in it now. It's now U.S. troops, U.S. bases, U.S. citizens directly in the line of fire. And if Iran thinks Trump is going to back down after this, they clearly haven't been paying attention. We're watching history unfold in real time. Buckle up, because the next move, well, it's Trump's, and he's in the Situation Room. Appreciate you.
An explosion in a port city on Iran's southern coastline. Iranian state television also reporting several explosions on two of its islands in the Strait of Hormuz and Persian Gulf.
Whoa.
This video, posted by US President Donald Trump, no caption, context, or location.
So we hit them very hard last night. I told them every time you hit, we hit. And of course, they're dirty players, so they go after everyone, probably including me. I've been number one on their list for years. And they're a bunch of scum. You want to know the truth? They're scum.
US Central Command releasing this footage saying US.
You know, one consistent thing I always see about people like Donald Trump, they always want to strike first. Now, Donald Trump struck these people first, but when they rise up and fight back, all of a sudden they're scum and dirty people. Why? Because they fought your ass back? You notice that many of them are like that. When they do something to us and we say something or we strike back, all of a sudden we're the one that's wrong and terrible and racist and this and that. I mean, they all do it. You notice that? All of them. But, hey, you started with them. This country was in mourning. They weren't fighting anybody. And you came up and you struck on them. Wow, they're dirty. Okay.
Forces hit more than 80 targets in Iran in response to attacks on commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, saying forces have begun launching a series of powerful strikes against Iran to impose heavy costs for targeting and attacking commercial shipping crewed by innocent civilians in an international waterway. At sea, a distress signal sent out. Fears this Qatari tanker loaded with liquefied natural gas could explode with its crew on board.
We are an LNG vessel loaded with LNG dangerous cargo. We require your assistance.
The Mayday call revealing it was hit on its port side and a fire in the engine room, leaving the engines and steering disabled. Separately, a Saudi-flagged crude tanker reportedly suffering damage near the strait. The ships attacked appeared to be using a route close to Oman's shore rather than one ordered by Tehran. Iran did not claim responsibility, instead pointing to ceasefire violations committed by the US, which included it revoking a license that authorized the sale of Iranian oil as part of the interim deal. The Iranian parliamentary speaker saying the era of bullying and extortion is over. It leads nowhere. We don't fold. Sirens sounding in Kuwait, the country's air defences engaged, Iran's Revolutionary Guards saying they had hit dozens of US military facilities in Bahrain and Kuwait. This flare in tensions coming at a time when millions of Iranians have spent the week honouring the late supreme leader, who was killed on the first day of this war. Iran's president and top diplomats in Iraq overnight as the multi-day funeral procession moved to the holy city of Najaf.
It's a very tense morning here in Tehran, the Iranian capital, as people take in what the President of the United States has just said at the NATO summit in Turkey. He seems to be suggesting that the agreement, the ceasefire that was brought into place just a few weeks ago, may indeed be over. Of course, nobody quite knows how to assess his comments, whether it really does mean a return to war, or whether this is the president kind of shooting from the hip and that the talks will still continue. I think what will cause deep offense here is the language that he's used in order to make these statements. Let me just read to you exactly what he said. He said that as far as I'm concerned, I think it is over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They are scum. You know what scum is. They're scum. He goes on to say they're sick people, they're led by sick people, and they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They'll want to negotiate. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. There is no diplomacy in that language. And that is something that I think the Iranians will really bristle at. Now, speaking to people here over the course of the last week, during the commemorations for the life and death of the late Ayatollah, who was killed on the first day of the war, the sentiment I've had is that there is a great concern and a kind of expectation that the ceasefire will not last and that it will end up returning to war. However, there is also a feeling that this is the very best chance for peace across this region, and there is a wish for that not to be completely negated. The next few hours will be absolutely crucial in determining where this goes, whether or not Donald Trump's comments are to be taken at face value and this ceasefire is over and therefore we can expect a return to full-scale war, or whether this is another emotional statement by the president that does not actually lead to anything significant on the ground.
All hell is breaking loose as the Trump regime renewed military operations against Iran, striking hard on coastal cities in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran responded by attacking 85 sites linked to the United States military in Bahrain and in Kuwait. Massive Iranian ballistic missile strikes and drone strikes in Bahrain and Kuwait was taking place for many, many hours. Folks, the memorandum of understanding, which already was basically non-existent, has been torn to shreds. And earlier yesterday, as you know, the Trump regime revoked the general license for Iran to sell its crude outside of Iran, which again is a violation of the MOU. And Iran has vowed that they are going to continue to strike back with vengeance. And they have also threatened, although they haven't officially confirmed this, but there are some hardline voices saying fully shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Again, we'll wait to see this morning into this afternoon what is happening there. In the meantime, the funeral processions for Ayatollah Khamenei, it's now taking place in Iraq, and there are massive, massive crowds in Iraq, in the city of Najaf, filled with crowds of mourners. I'll get to that in a moment. Donald Trump is panicking. Donald Trump is posting boom. He's posting cartoon graphics of the word boom. And then someone says, I voted for this. You voted for boom. You voted for destroying the United States economy, causing inflation to surge, making sure people can't afford anything in the United States, can't afford rent, can't afford their mortgage, can't afford groceries. Gas prices are going to be rising again. And also pay very close attention to what's going on right now in China, because China's working with its so-called teapot refineries in order to gobble up a lot of the demand of crude on the market, to also cause the prices to supply by taking the supply off the market, and causing the prices to rise by taking the supply off the market.
Well, y'all just get ready for the high gas prices again and the high jet fuel prices and oil, and everything's going back up again. Knew this wasn't going to last long, but here we are. This is the world ran by Gentiles, y'all. You can never expect anything decent from them. So it is what it is. So it may not be ending like many of us said. And remember, in the beginning, Iran said, yeah, bring it. We can do this for the next 10 years. And look like they're going to be able to do it at least for quite some time. Oh, no, the prices didn't go down. No. I'm just saying they're going to accelerate again. Now, oil prices did dip, when he was talking all that peace plan and all that stuff, but it ain't going nowhere. It's going nowhere but up. And remember, he said he don't care about Americans' finances. So any financial problems you're having, this man don't give a crap about it. All he cares about if Iran got a nuke. That's all he cares about. So it is what it is. So y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I do have one more live coming up at 7:45. Ben Crump is now representing the family of Nolan Wells. So we'll get into that at 7:45. So I hope to see you then. And don't forget to pick up your hair products. Shalom, family.